I am Judy Travis. I have been with FEMA now for going on 13 years and have been in disaster for the state before that. Tonight, I'm going to be explaining to everyone the sequence of delivery, which is what FEMA and the other government agencies have determined is the best way and the most expedient way to get your case going. And so the steps needed for each of these cases. During this presentation, I will be touching on some of the other government programs just to introduce you to them. I will not be able to answer a lot of questions on those. I just want to let you know how they interact with FEMA. And then, of course, as Ruby stated at the end of the presentation, I'll try to answer any questions. So I'm ready, Ruby, for the first slide, if you are. So individual assistance, what is the sequence of delivery? And so we have found that disaster assistance best works if you go in a sequential order of, you know, being able to access the organizations and programs. It also allows us to work with other government agencies and voluntary agencies to assure that the survivors get the grant monies and the help that they are entitled to without duplicating benefits. And we'll get into what the duplication of benefits means later on in the sequence. Next slide, please. First, there's the Stafford Act. So the Stafford Act came back in 1988. It was signed into law. It was decided that for disasters, we realized that there was a need to help people that did not have insurance, who was underinsured, you know, that were in any type of a disaster and needed help in getting going because maybe their state and local government didn't have the resources or were overwhelmed. So the Stafford Act came into law and they determined, the Stafford Act determines all of our rules and regulations. We go strictly by that for any type of disaster assistance. We help with supplements to the state to make sure that, you know, everyone hopefully is taken care of, and that at the end we can go into what we call a long-term recovery. Next slide, please, Ruby. After the Disaster Recovery Act was put in, you know, the Stafford Act was put into action, we found out that after each horrible disaster, there were things that needed to be changed. There were things that each disaster we found out were not being covered. And so there have been a couple of what I call addendums that were done to the act. The most recent was what we call the DRRA, or the Disaster Recovery Reform Act. That hopefully will reduce the complexity of the FEMA programs. We did changes in the programs. We changed the award limits for temporary housing assistance. We made sure that we realized that the maximum award limits, which I'll talk to you about, what we call maximum, is how much each person may qualify for in a grant from FEMA. But we realized that there were other things that were eating up this grant. And so it was decided upon, and the Reform Act was made to separate financial assistance maximum award for what we call other needs assistance and for basic assistance. Next, please. So the Stafford Act also defines the money limit, the time limit that FEMA's programs are. All IA programs, which is individual assistance programs. Now, you know, FEMA has several programs. We have public assistance, we have individual assistance. The individual assistance programs works directly with those people that were affected individually, not by your community, but by your individual circumstances. We had to make sure that there was a maximum amount that could be used. And this is determined every year. The state FEMA agreement, which is what each state and FEMA get into, and they decide what exactly is going to be covered in the event of a disaster. and the limits are determined based on the price index that's going on here in the United States now. So for instance, y'all have had several disasters, and it just so happened that one disaster happened in one fiscal year and then the other happened in the next. So the first disaster, Hurricane Laura, it was determined that for repair and reconstruction, which we call max grant, the max amount of money that FEMA can help you with after we have determined if you had insurance or not, is $35,500 for repair and reconstruction of your property. Used to be, you only got the $35,500, and that was for everything. That was for repair and construction. That was for any personal property. That was for any type of housing that FEMA needed to help you with. For instance, when you went into hotels and things. And then it was determined that we realized $35,500, as we all know, is not going to get anybody back to any type of normalcy. Remembering that we are not going to be able to put you back or help you get back to pre-disaster unless you had insurance. But we are going to try to help you to become safe, sanitary, and functional. And so it was determined in the DRRA that we're not only going to have a max grant for the repair and construction of your homes and your property, we're also going to have a max grant for what we call other needs assistance, which we'll get into. And the other needs assistance has several avenues that we have to go. It's going to depend upon what you have told the people when you register, what information you have given them. Do you have insurance? Are you possibly eligible for a disaster assistance loan, which we will get into? And so they have decided that actually the survivor could get up to $71,000. Now that doesn't mean that you're entitled to $71,000. When the disaster happens, they're going to look at everything according to FEMA's rules and try to determine how much you may be able to get help with. At the time that Delta, Zeta, and the winter storm came along, our max grants had changed. And so they went up to $36,000 for the repair and reconstruction of your home, and $36,000 possibly for other needs assistance. So that's why, depending on which disaster you filed in and the major damage was done, that's what's going to determine what amount you may be eligible for. The FEMA programs, everything has a duration of time. FEMA says that 18 months from the date that the disaster was actually declared, we must be able to have you taken care of, hopefully, and on your way to, some type of recovery. Next slide, please. So how does it all begin? And you can go to the next slide, Ruby, and then I'm just going to talk off of it. So as you know, the local government voluntary agencies, when there is a disaster, the local and state determine if the disaster is, and other entities determine if they need help with these disasters. Of course, everything starts at home, starts on the lowest level. And so if there's something that, that people in your local community can do, it always starts local and it always ends local. So the governor will determine if he wants, after what they call public damage assessments, and sometimes even if we know it's going to be a great disaster, like a hurricane coming in or whatever, the governor will go to the regional administrator there at FEMA and will ask for a declaration. At that time, they do what's called public damage assessments, PDAs, you will hear. That's where the state, the federal government, and the local people get together. We go out and survey the damage and try to determine if indeed a natural disaster needs to be declared or if it's just an emergency disaster. At the time that the disaster happens, the first most important thing is to make sure that everybody is sheltered, because a lot of people, as I'm sure a lot of you have experienced, are not able to stay in their homes. There's no utilities, there are no services. And so what we want to do with the help of, and always, always the help of the local government and voluntary agencies. That would be your Red Cross, all of your faith-based organizations, your state organizations. We're going to start immediately to be sure that we get people housed, they have food, clothing if needed, medical care, you know, right away, as long as it was, of course, caused by the disaster. Okay, Miss Ruby, next. So the first thing that you do, the disaster is declared. The president declares the disaster at the request of the state. And this is on a cost base. In other words, the state's going to put in so much for help with disaster care, and the federal government is going to come in and help with the other. This is where the survivors starts right away. We hopefully have already gotten everyone into some shelters now. Everyone calm down, all medical needs taken care of. And this is where your survivor, you need to take control of your case. There will be numbers provided for you to call FEMA. I will provide those numbers at the end. Of course, we're already well into these disasters, so I'm going back from the beginning and going to bring you up to where we are now. You would then call the 1-800 number and register put in your registration for help because you were affected by the disaster. Or you can go online and do this. Of course, now everything is done online. So if you have a computer, if you need someone to help you, you can go online and also register and get what we call a reference number, a FEMA registration number. At the same time that you're doing this, you should have already been calling your insurance company. If you had any type of personal insurance, of course, I know that we all pretty much understand that that's the best way to try to get back to any type of normalcy, is to hopefully have insurance to cover our personal property and our needs medically, and you know, to fix your house or to be able to replace your furnishings, transportation, things of that sort. Unfortunately, there are some that are not able to do so. That is where FEMA comes in. So when you call the FEMA helpline and you give them your information, and they're going to ask you at that time, you're going to have to prove that you are indeed a citizen or legal here in the United States, or that you have a child that is. You're going to give them your Social Security number. You're going to give them the address of the property that was damaged or destroyed during the disaster. And they're going to want you to prove your occupancy there, prove that you were indeed there at that time. You're going to have two different things here. One is going to be, did I lose you? I'm so sorry.
Pardon the technical difficulties. Please proceed.
Okay. And so let me get back to the page. So it is up to the survivor to contact FEMA. Once again, if you are insured, you still want to contact FEMA. Insurance doesn't always cover everything. Sometimes your insurance doesn't cover wells or septic tanks or things of that sort. It depends. And of course, there's so many different types of insurance. If it's a hurricane, you hopefully have wind and rain, and then of course there's flood, which is rising water. And so you want to, you know, even if you're insured, you still want to apply with FEMA. And so many people don't understand that. It's not going to hurt to apply. They're going to look at your information, see exactly what you're covered and what FEMA may be able to help with. There are also those people that are underinsured. You may have insurance on your house, but it's not covering everything that you may need. A lot of people have insurance on what we call brick and mortar, but they don't have insurance to cover their contents. And then of course, those that are not insured definitely need to apply for FEMA. Now at this time, I want to let you know that it's not just for owners of houses. If you are a renter and you are able to provide the same information that I said before, that you were here, an occupant at the time of the disaster, your name is on the lease, or you and whomever are in there, or maybe you're renting a room from someone, then you're still going to be entitled for help, whether it be for, or may be entitled for help. Let me put that may in there, because remember, the Stafford Act is not a given. It's not like your Medicare or your Social Security. The Stafford Act is strictly on disaster-related damages. And you have to prove, it is up to you to prove that you were there at that time, what the damages were, and what property you had was damaged. Next, please. So in these disasters that y'all have just had here in Louisiana, we usually have what we call temporary housing, transitional shelter, rental assistance, congregate shelter, and non-congregate shelter. In these particular disasters, and I say these because, bless you, Louisiana's had several this year. We were not able to do what we call our normal congregate sheltering. Normally, Red Cross and other faith-based organizations will come in and they will set up shelters, which I know a lot of you that have lived in Louisiana for the last however many years know what that involves. We would put you into a large auditorium. Everybody would have their own space. We would make sure that you had what's called wraparound services, which is where the meals were fed, morning, noon, and supper. We made sure there was transportation to and from medical facilities, things of that sort. However, due to COVID-19, the state and the federal government realized, we can't put everybody in there like this. So they came up, all of us came up with what's called non-congregate sheltering. And actually, this is one of the first large disasters that FEMA has ever had to do this. Non-congregate meaning Red Cross with the state of Louisiana, with FEMA, and I can't even begin to tell you everyone else that helped, decided that we had to go into non-congregate, meaning everybody had to have their own rooms. We had to keep families together so that you were safe and sanitary as possible. And so in these particular disasters that y'all have just experienced, there were hotels set up in downtown New Orleans. I believe it was the Sheraton and the Marriott. At that time, you were hopefully directed to go to those hotels, explain that you did not, that you needed a place to shelter. They took all of your information and they were able to place you into hotel rooms. Some of the hotel rooms were also done in Lafayette, Louisiana, because unfortunately, Lake Charles, where a lot of the damage, not all of it, was done, there were no facilities available there. I mean, y'all well know how badly it was done. So we tried to make sure everybody working together, that everyone was able to be bused and get into these shelters immediately. We also have what's called, some of you may have had to leave and may have had to go to a hotel. FEMA, once again, will look at that and help you with what we call transitional shelter financially. Rental assistance, which we'll get into. Once we have got you into the shelter, the non-congregate shelter, and then we work on trying to find out, where you're going to be, how you're going to start this new world over. Then we also will help you with rental assistance. Next, please, Ruby. Temporary housing broken down into two components. And this is where a lot of people get, don't understand. You hear about the FEMA direct housing coming in and you think, well, I need one of those mobile housing units. That's not how it works. If you'll go to the next page, please. I'm going to try and explain this. So the temporary housing, you may be eligible to receive a mobile home or a travel trailer, but it's not something that you ask for. This is determined when you call FEMA and you give them all of the information that they ask for. It goes into the big computer, and at that time, they automatically schedule when the person comes out and it's an inspection of your property. They're going to find out exactly where you were. They're going to determine if you had a certain level of damage, a certain dollar amount of damage, then and only then, if that is determined and proven, will you be asked if you would consider living in a temporary housing unit. And so there's nothing that you can do as long as you answer and you turn in all of the information, and we're going to get into that FEMA asks you for as quickly as possible. That's where we can help to determine if you're going to be eligible for that. The solution's available for up to 18 months. So the date that the disaster is declared, that's when your clock more or less starts. We have people right now that we are helping to get out of non-congregate sheltering, and we're trying to get them into what we call our direct housing program. That is where they've had to come to New Orleans because there was nothing available for them anywhere else, New Orleans or Lafayette. And so we housed you there until we could get your cases worked, make sure you had time to file with your insurance, make sure you turned in everything that we needed so that it could be determined, yes, you may very well need to be in a temporary housing unit until, number one, your home can be repaired, or number two, there are rental facilities, apartments, things of that sort available to you. We don't evaluate each family. But they have to show progress when you come in. So once we put you into those homes, you have to show progress that you are continually working towards trying to find a new place to live, working on the reconstruction or the repairs to your home. And so once you're put into a FEMA housing unit, you will have recertifications pretty much monthly. You don't get to go there and stay there for 18 months. We're going to help you as quickly as we can. But once again, it is up to the survivor to provide and help us. We're going to find you the grants. We're going to find you the help. You've got to do a lot of your own legwork. You've got to work with us to be able to get you back to somewhere that you're going to be comfortable. The sad part is a lot of people did not want to leave the areas that were hit the hardest. Of course, you don't want to leave your home. Your children are in school. I mean, you have jobs, everybody's there. Unfortunately, in a disaster, that doesn't work. We have to get you somewhere safe. You'll hear me say safe, sanitary, and functional many times. Safe meaning that you're in an area that is warm and cool and running water, and sanitary meaning, you know, clean, good living conditions. Functional meaning that you are able to get back into your daily routines. Next slide, please. So if they're not able to put you into a direct housing, or what we call a manufactured home, we also have programs such as MLRP, which stands for multi-lease rental properties. FEMA will go out along with the state and try to find hopefully apartment complexes, condominiums, things of that sort, that if FEMA can help them to make these houses livable, then they're going to try to help put you into those apartments so that you can be hopefully closer to your home place and continue to work on your recovery. FEMA will pay this rent directly to the landlord. So if they find a multiple lease property for you, and usually these are properties that are not necessarily available to the general public. You know, it's kind of like corporate apartments, things of that sort. They're usually furnished, just like our mobile housing units are. FEMA will pay that rent, but that rent goes directly to the landlord. Now, however, if you find your own place to rent, and you continue to request rental assistance, that will be given to you to pay to them, but you have to show exactly what the money goes towards. So many times, y'all, we will receive our initial rental expense, and usually when you're deemed eligible, you'll get 2 months of whatever the rental figures have been determined upon for that area and that year. You will receive 2 months for that, depending on the number of people that are in your household and how large of a household that you need. You can use 1 month of that for your deposit. So many people, when these disasters happen, we don't have a lot of money laying around that we can start all over again, and FEMA and your state realizes that. So your 2 months rental is going to come to you. And when you find a place that you can rent, whether it be temporarily or it's something that you want to go into long-term, FEMA will help. You can use 1 month of that rent for your deposit and 1 month for the initial rent. Now, you have to then continue to ask for help. It's every month or every 2 months. And at that time, you must show receipts and you must show, yes, I am looking. I am trying to find a place. This is what I've been doing. So many people take that money in the beginning, especially when we have everyone in non-congregate shelters or in congregate shelters, or maybe you're being helped out, excuse me, with your, you found a hotel or whatever in the beginning. Don't spend your money. We have so many people that say, I needed it to eat or I needed it to fix my car. You're not going to be given any more rental assistance unless you can prove that you use that money specifically for rental assistance. Next slide, please. So repairs and replacement, this talks about your house, your roof, your siding, your sheetrock. You might be eligible to receive funding from FEMA for that. A grant, and a grant meaning that you do not have to pay it back. You have to meet the credentials. You have to have applied, number 1, for FEMA assistance. You have to be uninsured or underinsured, okay? The home is then inspected, and I'm going to stop right here and talk to you a little bit about inspections. Pre-COVID, as soon as you registered with FEMA and registered with your insurance company and you got your registration number, man, it went into effect. They immediately set you up to have an inspector call you, come out and inspect your property and your personal belongings. However, because of COVID, this was not easily done. So we had to do what's called virtual inspections. This is where your inspector would talk to you, take all the information that he could over the phone, and hopefully you had pictures and such. You're going to find that we're having to do several re-inspections. Once again, we're going to get into appeals later on because, of course, what we're going by is what you're telling us. When a home has been damaged in a hurricane or in a winter storm, you sometimes don't know about the damage that's in the walls or that, happened that doesn't show up right away. And so it's very important in the beginning to cover everything that you can think of on this inspection. Make sure you had a list of all your furnishings and things, keeping in mind, once again, that what FEMA does is come in and try to help you to replace, to get your house back in livable order, to replace roofing, to replace sheetrock, to replace flooring, to replace items inside your home. But keep in mind that replacing items, we're not an insurance company. So you may have had a big screen TV in every bedroom. You may have had 3-bedroom, 2-bath house and there's only 2 of you there. Let me tell you how that works. So number 1, we don't replace big screen TVs. Once again, it's been determined annually off the price index what you're pretty much middle of the line, what it's going to cost for 1 television per family, 1 telephone per family, 1 kitchen, 1 dining room, and determining the bedrooms. Now, your bedrooms have to have been occupied in order for FEMA to cover them. And that brings up a difficult situation. So you're in a 3-bedroom house and it's just a couple there now, maybe 1 child or a mother or whatever. And so when you file your claim, but the house has been damaged now, half the roof just came off, or you've had holes, whatever it is. And so it's damaged all 3 bedrooms. However, FEMA is only going to be able to help you with the bedrooms that you can prove were occupied during the disaster. Remember, once again, we're not an insurance company. We're here to help those that do not have insurance or that are underinsured. And so in that situation, you're only going to get grant allocations. And I want to keep telling you, if indeed you are qualified, you will get grant monies for 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, or 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, the number of people that are in the house. They do not account for that other bedroom or 2 bedrooms that were damaged. So that's going to be an unmet need, which we're going to cover towards the end of this presentation. Next screen, please. When you first register with FEMA, not only have you given them all the information, hopefully, a lot of people have a tendency when they ask you what your monthly income is, you may not know right away, you don't know what to answer, so you say zero, or you're not sure exactly. But whatever that amount is, the computer determines if they think you may be eligible for an SBA disaster loan. SBA, Small Business Association, Administration. I'm going to cover this briefly because you're going to have a presentation on this later on. But when you've given all of your information, if the information that goes into the computer clicks a certain little button that says you're a HAP, H-A-P-P, that means FEMA thinks you may be eligible for a low interest SBA loan, which can help you to get back to where maybe you were pre-disaster. The homeowner can get up to $200,000 for the structure. A renter and homeowner can get up to $40,000 for personal property, which is everything inside your house, any vehicle that wasn't covered by other insurance. And a business, which is PA, can get up to $1,500,000. So you decide, I don't want an SBA loan. I can't afford an SBA loan. I need grant money and I'll have to do with that. Unfortunately, if the information you gave determines that you might be eligible, you are required to apply for that SBA loan. Until you apply for that loan, your case cannot be looked at for your other needs assistance, except for a few things. You're still going to get help with your housing and stuff, but you have to apply for that loan. You may not be eligible for whatever reason, but for whatever reason that you would deem there, you have to do it. SBA will be there helping you. They will have places set up. They will be just like FEMA. They'll have phone numbers. They will send you immediately your information packet and application, and all you have to do is call them. And the sooner you get that completed, then the faster we can get this case going. Don't get upset and think I can't afford it. You may not be able to, but you still have to apply for it. And if you are eligible for an SBA loan, you don't have to get the total amount. You can choose what amount you think you might need to get yourself back up and going again. Okay, and so should you not qualify for the SBA loan, they come back and say, we're sorry, but you're not eligible for whatever reason, then your case automatically, and I stress automatically, it goes back to FEMA for FEMA to see, no, they were not eligible and they may need help with other needs assistance. Next, please. So once again, let's see. So other needs assistance, which is also called ONA. Now, ONA has two categories. They have a category that we call dependent on SBA and a category that we call not dependent, meaning that if for instance, medical, dental, funeral, they're not SBA dependent. We're not saying, hey, you have to try to get an SBA loan first. If it's disaster related, and unfortunately you've had a medical crisis or a death, then FEMA is going to be able to help you with that if you qualify. If you do not have, and let's talk a little bit about duplication of benefits. If you already have medical insurance and you already have dental insurance or you have funeral insurance, then FEMA's not going to come in and double that. We can't do that. We cannot duplicate benefits. You've got to go with what you have available first. Doesn't mean that if you don't have enough that FEMA won't come in and help with that. So I want to make sure that you understand those items are not SBA. ONA may also cover other needs assistance, what we call personal property and transportation. So you're denied by the SBA. Once again, like I explained to you a while ago, we're going to come in and give you pretty much bare necessities. I mean, for instance, you know, what it takes for you to set up a home, not an abundance of. you know, the furniture, the TVs, the radios, the things of that sort. If you have a vehicle or two vehicles that were damaged during the disaster and you have liability insurance only. Now, and most states require that you at least have liability. You do not have full coverage. Then other needs assistance may also help you with repairs and or replacement. Not a total replacement of $50,000 or $60,000. The states and FEMA determine what amounts they want to help with. Some states it's 6,000, it can go from 6 to 10,000. Doesn't matter how old or how new the car is. That's all they're going to be able to help with. But like I say, you had to have had insurance. The car has to be in your name. You have to prove that the car was there when the disaster happened. I want to make sure that you understand, say you have visitors at the time of the disaster, aunt and uncles, grandparents, whomever, and they're there at the time of the disaster, you have to evacuate, the car wasn't able to be moved. Those people, even though they were just visiting, may be eligible for these items. They may be eligible for medical, dental, and or their cars, okay? Even though they did not live here. Okay, next, please. So FEMA grants, and I say grant because remember, a grant you do not have to pay back, but they are designed to bring family back to your basic living standards. I mean, it's just like starting all over, you guys. I don't have to tell y'all that. Y'all know that. Next slide, please, Phoebe. I mean, when you lose everything, as we all know, it takes a long time. And that's why I say when the amounts used to be so low for max grants, and you could barely replace furniture and stuff for $35,000, much less be able to do repairs and things on your home. And so that's when the Disaster Recovery Act came in. Long-term recovery groups. So we have gone through now registering with FEMA, filing with our insurance company, applying for our SBA loan if they have deemed that we need to do that. You're going to be receiving a letter from FEMA, and that letter is going to say you are eligible for a certain amount of money, or we're sorry, but we have found that you're not eligible at this time for a FEMA grant. People get real upset. They wad that thing up, they throw it in the trash can, and they don't continue to read. You want to continue to read the letter. Probably why you're disqualified, folks, is you haven't provided the information we need. So you filed with your insurance company, and FEMA says we have to have documentation from your insurance company showing what they're going to cover. We've got to know exactly what they're covering, how much they gave you for it, all of the above, because we're not going to duplicate those benefits, okay? If we give you the same amount they give you, you're going to have to give it back. And so you're going to make sure that that duplication is not there. You're going to get that information in from your insurance company as soon as possible. You are then going to make sure that you've applied for that SBA loan. And if you're eligible for that at a very, very low interest, SBA then handles it from that part. I'm not saying you're still not eligible for some of FEMA's assistance, because you may be, but FEMA will automatically know if and how much you were loaned at that time. And then we've done everything that we can do. We've gotten all of our FEMA money. I don't want to pass up appeals, and I could talk on appeals for days to come. People are like, well, FEMA only gave me $7,000 and my neighbor got $13,000, and that's not fair. I'm going to tell you briefly how that's determined. Once again, we don't know. You may be two people in your household. Your home may be totally different composition than your neighbors. Your neighbors may have 5 people in their household, okay? They may have had different damage than you had. So you cannot compare yourself to your neighbors, okay? But say you get the money and you look at it and you say, you know, FEMA, this just doesn't sound right. I mean, you're only giving me $13,000 and that's what it's going to cost me to repair my roof. So what do? You file an appeal. Everybody is able to file an appeal. And I'm going to tell you that in these disasters, a lot of the reasoning, and they'll get mad at me, but a lot of the reasoning for needing appeals is that we did virtual inspections. And so some things were missed. And so whose responsibility is that to ask? When you get any type of denial, you don't just take it for granted. You ask why. Why aren't you giving me money? Or why did you only give me this amount? Now, when you write your appeal, and there will be people in your communities like our VALs and the different VOAD groups, which are voluntary organizations active in disaster, that are going to be helping you with case management. You at that time are going to tell the FEMA people, you know what? This is the estimate that I got. This is what it's going to take to replace the items on my house, just back to basic. And I would like for you to reconsider this. Now, when you do that, you can't just have Uncle Joe write out a, Uncle Joe may be a contractor, but he doesn't get to do that. You've got to have a reputable firm that comes out, that looks at your home, and that can break down what it's going to cost. Then when you file for that appeal, you ask FEMA, please reconsider. These are the bills. This is what it's going to take me. Or I feel like you didn't consider that maybe my air conditioning unit, we didn't know it wasn't working because there was no electricity to the home, things of that sort. Once again, it's up to you, the survivor, to make sure that you do this. We do have people that can help you for those of you that just feel lost with it. But you're going to file that appeal. You're going to explain to them, what you're asking for, and then you will be reconsidered. You can file as many appeals as you want, but let me explain what some people do. It's not going to do you any good to keep sending the same appeal in over and over. If you send an appeal in and they determine, you know what, no, you still have not proven to us that it's going to cost more than what we are able to give you. Or maybe your insurance company didn't cover your well, okay? And so you have to be able to prove to FEMA what exactly it's going to cost and why there's still an unmet need there. Only you, once again, can do that. So we've filed, we've gone through all of our inspections, and we've gone through our appeals, and we've hopefully gotten everybody into some sort of direct housing or some sort of rental facility. And we're continuing to monitor you and help you to pay those things. We're trying to get you back. And when I say we, this is all of the government agencies and the VOADs and the faith-based, not just FEMA. Because remember, FEMA is asking here by your state. We come in behind the state. We are here to assist your state. Your state determines what's best for y'all. But when all of that's been done, we come down to what is called unmet needs, meaning that I've received all the monies I'm going to get, but it's not enough. I just don't have the money for whatever reason to complete it. What am I going to do? This is where your FEMA VALs, voluntary agency liaisons, step up. They go out into your communities. They get together, and most of your communities here in Louisiana already have what we call long-term recovery groups. But every disaster, you're going to have different phases. These groups have all of your voluntary agencies. They have your faith organizations, whether it's the Methodist or the Catholic or the Baptist. They have government. A lot of times your state also has government grants that they've been able to dig up and stuff. And so they put all that together. They put together a panel of people, and these people are representing all of the, all walks in your community. In other words, it's not a government thing. These are people from your churches. These are people from your local businesses. These are people from your schools. These people come together and they set up what we call bylaws and mission statements, and they start asking for help. They start letting it be known that there are unmet needs in this community. You may have received monies to repair your home, and you may have enough money for materials, but you don't have enough money for the labor. These long-term recovery groups will then work on that with you. And the VALs are going to be doing a presentation, which is going to let you understand exactly how they can help with that. So at this point of the recovery, of the recoveries, where we are, folks, is we are just about to get what we call our non-congregate shelter, survival homes, whether they be temporary or the new permanent. We're working very, very diligently on that. Many, many departments of FEMA. When we say individual assistance, that covers what we call mass care, who were the ones out here in the beginning helping you to get into these homes, working with Red Cross in the state, making sure that you're fed, making sure that the laundry's done, making sure that you have your medical care, all of that sort of thing. But at the same time, we have a group called Direct Housing that is diligently, if it has been determined and requested to have a housing mission, I want to put that out there, then they're automatically going to start, okay, what are we going to do? Where are we going to put these places? Remember, we can't just come in and put a mobile home beside your house. We can't just come in and, get a lot at Walmart and place mobile homes. It's a long, drawn out process, folks. You have to have the place to put them. They have to be safe and sanitary. They have to have everything that you would normally need. Even though it's for a short time, this takes time. So we're going to go with as many options as we possibly can. And I'm going to tell you that DCFS, which are the Child and Family Social Services, the state, of course, FEMA, SBA, so many others, Corps of Engineers. We have all, you just can't work fast enough. We all work together. We all meet with each other. We make sure that we know what each person needs, what stage it's in, and we go from there. So at this point in the disaster, I'm going to hope that you have, number one, if you got a denial letter, that you have called FEMA and asked them, why am I being denied? If you have not provided the information that they're asking for, that has to be provided. A lot of times, in several states, you may be living in a home that's been in your family for several years. Maybe it was grandma's home. Grandma didn't leave a will, but it's left between mom and daddy, and you've got a bunch of us living there, but we can't prove ownership, okay? There's no way to prove ownership on that. Nothing's ever been done. So the other services that come in along with FEMA are what we call disaster legal services, who can help you with those items. We have people that can help you, as far as emotional crisis counseling. All of these things are provided. The state asks for them, FEMA sends them out there, and we get the programs going. You can't begin to know what's behind you.